part of the Sun Valley family for quite a while. And it's good to be back. Last weekend, lots of you might have been at the school at the Academy where they were celebrating the 100-year centennial anniversary. It was a big event. Or maybe you've just been away a bit and you're back today. It's great to have you here. It's been an interesting week for me. It was my first week of holidays, and I'm a teacher. And other than Brad, teachers probably get the most holidays of anyone else. And some of my friends are a little bit resentful of those holidays, but I just have 2 words for you: fidget spinners. Okay, if you don't think we deserve holidays, and if you don't know about them, well, you just go and hang out with a kid for a while, and then you'll understand. I also started my spring cleaning this week during my first week of summer holidays, so I feel like we're off to a good start. And on a more serious note, my husband Dave had eye surgery just over a week ago, and he had to spend my first week of holidays lying face down for 20 hours a day. And it just gave me a lot of empathy for people who live with that kind of, like a chronic pain or a chronic disability. It really made me think of how much we take for granted and how lucky we are to be able to move and come and go the way we do. So, and he actually was a really good patient, way better than when he has a cold, which is, you know, the world is ending. So it went okay, but I am very glad to be back here today and be here with you to celebrate Sabbath and celebrate this day. And the band is up here, but let's just start with a word of prayer. Father in heaven, thank you for the sunshine that we have here, and we think too, though, of the people who are just in the middle of huge disasters with fires and who have just gotten over floods, and it just seems like there's craziness all around us. We ask for your hands of protection and your guidance and safekeeping. Help us to watch for ways to help if we can, and help us to just be grateful for what we have and the time to be here. And we ask that you clear our minds and our hearts to be able to spend this time with you. In your name, amen.
Your love on the line. the only one who could ever stay, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you, we live for you. Holy, there is no one like you, there is none beside you. Open up my eyes.
Praise the
But our faithful and hard-worked children's volunteers and leaders, during the summer, it's just with families gone, with volunteers away, we won't be having our regular kids classes for the younger ones during the summer, so they're welcome to join us in here. And we just give Dale the time right now.
So, good morning to y'all. For those of you who don't know who I am, as she said, my name is Dale. I've been a member here at Sun Valley for quite a number of years. Normally I don't do this. Normally I sit back there hiding in the soundboard. But today Abraham asked if I could fill in. I have done this a couple times before, but that shouldn't mean that it's going to be good, so just be prepared for that. If you would bow your heads with me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, I just want to again thank you for this time that we have here and the freedom that allows us to do this in the open. Lord, I would ask that your words come out of my mouth for this time, and that you teach us what you want us to know. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
So, Recently, we've been doing a series about legacy. And if you've been here, Abraham's done some amazing talks about the different people that we find in Judges in the Bible. But today, I'm going to start out with that goofball. Does anybody know who that is? Actually, if you know, just say it out loud. Anybody? Close. Not Formula One. His name is Valentino Rossi. He's a motorcycle racer. He was born in 1979, February 16, in Italy. And he decided at a very early age that he wanted to do racing as his career. And so he, like a lot of people that end up in motorsports like that, he started out very, very young, racing all kinds of different things, from cars to bikes and all that kind of stuff. By the time he was 16 years old, he had been given a race seat on a 125cc MotoGP bike. Now, for those of you who don't know, because pretty much nobody knew who that was, I'm just going to explain a little bit. Motorcycle racing in the top tier in the world is done in 3 different categories: 125cc, 250, and 500cc bikes. And the better you are, the faster the bike, and the more powerful it is, and the more dangerous it is. So you start out, most of the people who end up in the top tier, the 500cc, which is now called just MotoGP, they start out at 125. So that's what he did. And 16 years old is when he first got his race seat. Not an unusual thing. There are lots of really young people in there. The interesting thing about his career is that he, in his first year, just learning how to ride those bikes and what it took, he only got 2 podium finishes, and he finished in 9th place in the championship. The second year, he won the championship. And after that, he got, his manager got him a race seat on a 250cc bike. And a similar thing kind of happened. He didn't win the championship his first year, and the second year, he won the championship. And then he moved into the 500cc class. And at that point, he just started to absolutely crush his competition. From the first year that he was in the top class, he came in second in the championship, but didn't win. The next year, the second year, he came in first in the championship, and that was one of 5 consecutive world titles that he won. And then he lost the world championship by, again, coming in second place the next year, and then proceeded to win 2 more world championships. So by the time he had been in MotoGP racing for, let's see, what is that, 15 years, he had won 9 world championship titles. At that point, and if you know anything about motor racing, I follow a lot of different motorsports, at that point, his stats were just unreal. He had gotten to the place where, statistically speaking, if he just showed up at the racetrack, he had a 75% chance of coming in first, second, or third. And that his win percentage was almost 57%. And those numbers are just unheard of in modern motorsport because of how close the competition normally is. Now, I don't know what God intended for his life, but if it wasn't motorcycle racing and he's actually better at something else, that would just be astounding, because his career has broken so many records and has been so notable for the things that he's been able to do in that discipline. I don't know what he believes about God. I don't know if he believes in God. But by the time he got to that point in his career where he had won 9 championships, pretty much dominated all of his competition, I'm sure that he was convinced of his own ability. And there's nothing really wrong with that, because he had proven over and over and over again that he was capable of something that pretty much everybody else who was racing against him wasn't. And that's good. The thing about that is that there's no room for God in that equation, really. There's a little bit of tiny room. You know, he could have said, God made me like this, but then it was all me after that. But that's basically what it boils down to. He would have ended up, at that point, if he did believe in God, basically in that place saying, here's what I can do, and God gave me the starting point, and I just went from there. Today, we're going to talk about another guy from the Bible who was completely and totally different than Valentino Rossi in pretty much every way that you can possibly imagine. So the last sermon that Abraham preached was about Deborah and Barak. And at the end of chapter 5 in Judges, talking about what had been going on, the very last verse says, and there was peace in the land for 40 years. And then we go right into the story of Gideon. After that 40 years of peace, because of what the Israelites had been doing, basically, the Bible says that God gave the Israelites up into the hands of the Midianites. The interesting thing about that statement is that it doesn't really convey exactly what had happened. After the 40 years of peace, some point in time through that time, the Israelites had decided that God was no longer the most important thing to them. And had started worshiping other gods native to that area, the land of Canaan. And had built altars and shrines all over the place to these different gods, the gods of the Amorites. And that's something that I think is interesting about most of these stories in the Bible. So often the phraseology is that God delivered them or gave them up to whoever or whatever. But very often, the most important thing about that is not that God physically handed them to anybody. He didn't come down and be like, okay, all the Israelites, you just come on, you go over here, and these guys are going to attack you and you can't do anything about it. It was more the people just continually over and over just denied God a part in their lives, which led to God not being involved and led to all these different kinds of things. By the time that we get to the point in the Bible where we're talking about Gideon in this story, the Israelites have been basically persecuted by the Midianites for 7 years now. If you want to follow along in your Bibles, I read from Judges 6, right at the beginning. Again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and for 7 years he gave them into the hands of the Midianites. Because of the power of Midian was so oppressive, the Israelites prepared shelters for themselves in mountain clefts, caves, and strongholds. So basically what was going on is that there was a section, this is where Gideon lived here. This is the Valley of Jezreel. One of the most fertile places in all of Israel. A good place to grow crops and live and all that kind of good stuff. The Midianites, and the Bible doesn't really say why this is, the Midianites didn't do actually much of anything to the people themselves, either because they had decided that it wasn't worth the time and the effort to actually get an army big enough together to actually take over their castles and their strongholds, or because of the fact that they just liked bugging them by basically invading the land every single year, right about harvest time, taking all that they wanted and destroying everything else and then leaving after that. So they come every single year, like clockwork, and just basically ruin the Israelites' lives, or do everything they could to make their lives miserable. It says that whenever the Israelites planted their crops, Midianites, Amalekites, and other eastern peoples invaded the country. They camped on the land, they ruined the crops all the way to Gaza, and did not spare a living thing for Israel, neither sheep, nor cattle, nor donkeys. Because this has been going on, the Israelites cried out to the Lord, and then he sent them a prophet who said, "This is what the Lord your God says. I brought you up out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. I snatched you from the power of Egypt and from the hand of all your oppressors. I drove them from before you and gave you their land. And I said to you, I am the Lord your God. Do not worship the gods of the Amorites in whose land you live. But you have not listened to me." So we're at a time now where the Israelites for 7 years have been oppressed by these people, and everybody knows what's coming every single year. And every single year, the Israelites try different ways to figure out how to keep some of their crops hidden from the Midianites so that they actually have something for the next year. And that's kind of where we get to Gideon. So the story starts out by just talking about the interaction with God and Gideon. It says, "The angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Ophrah that belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites." So he's sitting there, and he's doing his job, trying to get some wheat from something that they hid inside the wine press so that they could actually have some crops. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." First thing out of Gideon's mouth was, "But sir, if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all his wonders that our fathers told us about when they said, did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt? But now the Lord has abandoned us and put us into the hand of Midian." First thing that comes out of his mouth is, "What are you talking about? You're not here. You're not with us. This has been happening for 7 years, and you haven't done anything about it." That is the first thing. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I've felt called by God in my life, I've had a very similar reaction. "What are you talking about? I don't feel your presence. I don't feel that you're here with me right now. It feels like things are just difficult for me." And I get selfish when I look at those kinds of things. I focus on the bad stuff that I feel like is going on in my life, and it makes it hard for me to believe that God is with me and then going to therefore be with me as he calls me to do whatever that is. The Lord is so patient with us. The very first thing that he does is he says to Gideon, the Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of the hand of Midian." He's like, "Just go. I'll be here. Just go." And then he says, "Am I not sending you? Am I not giving you as the thing that is my influence in the Israelites' lives? Yes, this stuff has been going on, but I'm here, and this is what I want you to do. You said you're not doing anything. You said you've abandoned us, but then God's like, I haven't abandoned you because here I'm talking to you about this." The one thing that keeps on coming up in Gideon's story is his lack of belief in the fact that he has what's necessary. His next response is, "But Lord, how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." And the Lord answered, "I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites together." Still not believing, Gideon says, If now I have found favor in your eyes, give me a sign that this is really you talking to me. Please don't go away until I come back and bring my offering and set it before you." And the Lord said, "I will wait until you return." So Gideon goes, and he cooks up goat, and he makes some bread, and he brings it out, and he places it on a rock right beside the tree. The angel of the Lord said, "Take the meat and the unleavened bread, and place them on this rock, and pour out the broth." And Gideon did so with the tip of his staff that was in the hand. The angel of the Lord touched the meat and the unleavened bread. Fire flared from the rock, consuming the meat and the bread. And then the angel of the Lord disappeared. When Gideon realized it was the angel of the Lord, he exclaimed, "Ah, sovereign Lord, I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face." Basically saying he was terrified. Before, there's been stories that I'm sure Gideon had heard where people had seen God's face and had things happen to them, been blinded, killed them outright, that kind of thing. But the Lord said to him, "Peace, do not be afraid. You're not going to die." So Gideon built an altar to the Lord there and called it, "The Lord is Peace." And to this day it stands in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. One of the things that I find that Gideon was like me was that he constantly needed reassurance. He starts out by saying, "I'm not good enough." And then God says, "I'm with you, I'm sending you." And he says, "Yeah, but look at me, I'm the weakest. I am the lowest of my family, and we're the weakest in all of Manasseh." And sometimes it's hard to believe that God's made the right choice, that God's actually called the right person, that he didn't screw up when he started looking at all the people that he had available to him to actually send and do this thing. Because I'm sure that went through Gideon's mind. God, there's got to be other people that are better suited to this. But God says, no, I chose you, I know what I'm talking about. You just have to trust me. The other thing about what I learned reading this was that it seems like when God calls us, he's not calling us because of what we are right then. He's not calling us because of who we are right then. He calls us based on what he knows we can be, the kind of person that he knows we can become, the kind of skills that the kind of gifts that he's given us. The hardest part for me in my life has been just believing that God is going to make those things happen. Just trusting. Either because of the fact that I think to myself, well, I'm going to have to do that, and I'm not letting God do it through me. Or because of the fact that I feel like God hasn't given me that gift one way or the other. It feels like you're asking the wrong person because that's not who I am right now. And that's true. That's maybe true. That may be not who I am right now. But that doesn't mean that's not who I'm going to be later. And that's what God does. He calls us in those times for those reasons, for that task, based on what he knows we can be. So, the next thing that God tells him to do is he said, I want you to take that second loaf of your father's herd, the one 7 years old, tear down your father's altar to Baal, and cut down the Asherah pole beside it, and build a proper kind of altar to the Lord your God on the top of this height, using the wood of the Asherah pole that you cut down. Offer the second bull as a burnt offering. So Gideon took 10 of his servants, and he did what the Lord said. But because he was afraid of his family and the men of the town, and their reaction to them tearing down the altar that they had built to Baal, he waited until nighttime to do it. Again, I can identify with Gideon and the fear that would make him make that choice, right? He's sitting there, he's going, okay, God, fine, I'll tear this down. But you know that all the people in town worship this thing. When I tear it down, they're going to be really mad. They're going to think that I'm going to anger Baal and then calamity's going to fall on our head. Because that's how things went back then. The belief was very strong in the idea that when we worship these things, and if we do it properly, good things are going to happen. And when bad stuff has happened, we've just made God mad, and that's why it happens. So Gideon and his servants do this in the middle of the night. An example of the kind of person that Gideon is. In general, I don't necessarily consider myself a coward, but I still can identify with this kind of fear, this overwhelming idea. I was pretty terrified to come up this morning. So I know I have an idea of what it would be like to sit there and go, okay, God, I understand what you're saying, but I still have to get up and do that, and that's going to be difficult. Gideon went and did it anyway. Even though he did it at night, he did what God asked. The other thing about what happens when God calls us is that although God calls us knowing what we're going to be, he doesn't expect us to wait until we get there before we do anything. He tries to get us to the place where we need to be by asking us to do stuff that help us grow and help us change into the wonderful being that he knows that he made us to be. So he calls Gideon, he says, hey, I need you to do this. Gideon's like, fine, but I'm terrified, so I'm just going to do this at night. And God said, okay, that's fine. I can work with that. I can work with the fact that you are not prepared to just stand up in the middle of the town and destroy the altar in front of everybody in the middle of the day. And the thing about that is that because God works with you where you're at, he works with you at that exact point, there's no need to wait. There's no need to go ahead and be concerned about not being successful one way or the other. Because God is still there. He's still working with what you're able to give. And he knows what you're able to give and not give. God just calls you right then and asks you to do something. And as long as you're faithful with that, as long as you're faithful with completing the actions that he puts before you, he can work with that. No matter how small, and even if it's not exactly the way he said, he'll still work with it. So Gideon, it doesn't really say in the Bible the amount of time that passed in between this moment when Gideon was told by God to go ahead and go forth, and he was going to show him how to defeat the Midianites and get them out of it. But it must have been a significant period of time. The Bible just basically says that all the Midianites, the Amalekites, and the other eastern peoples had joined forces and crossed over the Jordan and camped in the valley of Jezreel. Then the Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon, and he blew a trumpet, summoning the Israelites to follow him. He sent messengers through Manasseh, calling them to arms, and also into Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, so that they too went up to meet them. Gideon said to God at this point, "If you will have me save Israel by my hand as you have promised, I need something else. I need confirmation about this. Look, I will place a fleece on the threshing floor. If there is dew only on the fleece and all the ground is dry, then I will know that you will save Israel by my hand, as you have said." So Gideon, again, asked for reassurance. He asked for confirmation that God is going to be with him. I don't know how long it took to gather all the men together, but I imagine that it took a while to get all the people together. So Gideon had some time to do some thinking. So he asked this of God. He says, "God, I just need a little bit of this." And again, because God loves us, and because God understands us in here, he's like, "Okay, I can do that." And so Gideon puts out the fleece, comes back the next day, only the fleece is wet. But at the end of that, it's not enough. Gideon says, "Okay, don't be angry with me. Let me just make one more request. Allow me one more test with the fleece. This time make the fleece dry and the ground covered with dew." Again, Gideon's there saying, I'm just not sure, God. I'm just not convinced that this is what should be happening. I'm so scared, I'm so terrified about doing exactly what you say. I just need a little bit more reassurance. And God, because of who he is, because of how he knows us, he knew that Gideon needed that. So what does he do? He's like, "Fine, no problem. I'll do it again." And he does it again, and the fleece is dry, and the ground is wet. And so Gideon, again, he's like, "Okay, now I've had enough. I understand what you're talking about. Let's go ahead and I'll do this." So he gathers the men together. The Bible goes on to say about the gathering. He got all the men together. The Lord said to Gideon, "You have too many men for me to deliver Midian into their hands. In order that Israel may not boast against me that her own strength saved her, announce now to the people, anyone who trembles with fear may turn back and leave Mount Gilead." So, whatever time it took to get all the men together, Gideon's there, got all the guys together. Finally, got an army, thinks to himself, "Okay, good. I've got a bunch of people, we're good to go." God says to him, "No, too many people." I don't know what Gideon was thinking, because the Bible doesn't say, but if I'd be Gideon, I'd be like, "What? What do you mean we got too many people? Have you seen them?" Earlier in the Bible, it talks about the fact that the Midianites and the Amalekites and all those eastern peoples, those eastern tribes, couldn't be counted. They said in the Bible that the men can't be counted and the camels can't be counted. So we don't know how many that were there, but it was obviously enough that Gideon, the first response must have been, I'm just speculating here, must have been, "Are you kidding? Why are we sending some of them home? We need every guy that we can get to actually make this work." And he says, "Okay, fine, I get it. I'll follow what you say." So he goes out to the men, talking to them, stand in front there, say, "Hey guys, thanks for coming out. Really appreciate you making the trip from your homes and everything. So I just want to say that if any of you are really, really scared about dying in this war that we're going to start here, you can all go home." And It says that 22,000 men left. Now, if I'm just standing up there in his place and I've been looking at all these men and saying, hey, guys, if you're really, really scared, you can go. And then 22,000 of them got up and started to walk away. I would have been like, whoa, 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 whoa. I didn't mean all of you. You can't all be scared enough that you all have to leave. But whatever happened, 22,000 of them left. So starting with 32, he was left with 10,000 men. But the Lord God said to Gideon, there are still too many men. I can imagine Gideon went, really? Now we're down to 10,000, we're still too many. There's still too many. Have you seen them, God? Have you seen how many of them there are there? It doesn't really say what kind of assurances that Gideon asked for at that point. But he did what God said. God said, take them down to the water, and I will sift them for you there. If I say this one shall go with you, he shall go. But if I say this one shall not go with you, he shall not go. So Gideon took the men down to the water. And there the Lord told him, separate those who lap the water with their tongues like a dog from those who kneel down to drink. 300 men lapped with their hands to their mouths. All the rest got down on their knees to drink. And the Lord said to Gideon, with the 300 men that lapped, I will save you and give the Midianites into your hands. Let all the other men go, each to his own place. So Gideon sent the rest of the Israelites to their tents, but kept the 300 who took over the provisions and the trunks from the other. Now, at this point in the Bible, it doesn't say what Gideon was thinking. But a little bit later on, it gets back to this idea of God and his ability to understand what we're feeling inside and the kind of reassurance that we need. It says, now the camp of Midian lay below him in the valley during that night. The Lord said to Gideon, get up and go down into the camp, because I am going to give it into your hands. If you are afraid to attack, go down into the camp with your servant Purah and listen to what they are saying. Afterwards, you will be encouraged to attack the camp. So God, again, just says to Gideon, I understand. I understand what you're feeling inside. So do this, and you will feel better. So Gideon goes down there with his servant, and as however they were doing it, walking through the camp, disguised, or whatever it was, they walked by this man who was and they overhear this guy telling his friend about his dream. And the man said, I had a dream. A round loaf of barley bread came tumbling down into the Midianite camp, and struck the tent with such force that the tent overturned and collapsed. And his friend responded, this can be nothing other than the sword of Gideon, son of Joash, the Israelite. God has given the Midianites and the whole camp into his hands. So Gideon goes down there, and God makes this amazing thing happen where he heard exactly what he needed to hear to be convinced that God was going to be with him. And the next time. One of the things that I learned from reading this in depth was the fact that sometimes the thing that is wrong with us is the fact that we think that we need strength. It's the thing that often keeps us from relying on God. When you're in a situation in which you feel like you have control, it is much, much, much easier to believe that you can take care of it or you can handle it on your own. That, I don't want to say desperation, but that need, that recognizing, that understanding of the fact that you can't deal with this all by yourself, it was important for Gideon. It was the thing that allowed him to believe in God the way he needed to. Because when he understood that this wasn't going to be done because of who he was, but because of who God was, he was able to believe that it was possible. Because his belief in God's power meant that all things are possible with him. So Gideon takes his 300 men, and he goes to fight a war, whatever way he thinks that that God needs it done. The Lord said to Gideon, "Get up, go down into the camp." Sorry, not that one. When Gideon had heard the dream and its interpretation, he went back to the camp, and he worshipped God. When he returned, he called out to all the men, "Get up, the Lord has given the Midianite camp into your hands." Dividing his 300 men into 3 companies, he placed trumpets and empty jars in the hands of all of them with torches inside. "Watch me," he told them. "Follow my lead. When I get to the edge of the camp, do exactly as I do. When I and all who are with me blow our trumpets, then from all around the camp blow yours and shout, 'For the Lord and for Gideon.'" So Gideon gets his people. They go down there. They get close to the camp. They break open their jars with the torches, start screaming, blow some trumpets. And all of that creates a situation in which the Midianites are so terrified, based on where their mind was at before and what's happening around them, that they just start killing each other and run away in terror. The Bible doesn't say that they were defeated at that point. Gideon chased them down with some other men later on. But that victory was the thing that started the Israelites fighting back and being able to gain control of the land back from the Midianites and the Amalekites. Without that, we don't know for sure, but without that, I don't think it would have happened. And that was basically just a simple act of faith. Gideon's role, by the time they got down to the Midian camp, was just basically to show up. None of the Israelites were armed. They didn't have any weapons. I mean, think about that. You're going to a war, and you don't have a sword. And you're supposed to believe that not only is God going to give you victory, that you're not going to die during that time. And that's exactly what happened. God made that happen. He'd done that so many times to the Israelites before this. The thing that I was a little bit surprised about was the short period of time. From the time that Deborah and Barak's story had happened until the Gideon's incident, it was only 47 years. So a bunch of the people that were alive then were still alive during this time when the Midianites were persecuting them and just making their lives absolutely miserable. How often do we forget the things that God's done in our lives in a short period of time? How often do we need to be reminded, just like Gideon was? And the thing about this is that when God just calls us to do stuff, so often the only thing that's important is that we just show up. The battle isn't here very often. It isn't out here. It's in here. It's in here. The thing that God wants in all of these circumstances was to show what He can do through us and with us as long as we let Him. If God had allowed Gideon to take his 32,000 men, it may have been that they'd got to the end of that battle and said, yeah, we were able to do this. God helped a little bit, but we were able to do it. The way it turned out, the way God instructed Gideon to make it happen, there was no way to deny God's influence in that. None. You don't win a battle with 300 guys against an army that you can't count with torches yelling, and that's it. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen ever. God wanted to show the Israelites that He was still there for them, that He was still the God that they had heard about for generations past. I think He also wanted to show the Midianites that He was there for them. I think He wanted it to be this thing where there was no way for anybody to deny that he was involved in that. That can't be done just by man. There had to be God in there. And at the end of it, all that Gideon's job was to just show up, and then God does all of the rest of the work. There's a couple things that I want to share with you about today. Normally, when I've spoken in the past, I have to write everything down word for word, and otherwise I just feel like I'm not prepared, and it's just going to be an awful experience for everyone. But when Abraham asked me if I would speak for this week, when I said yes, I started doing what is normally my preparation for any time that I talk, and it wasn't really working. I wasn't able to write down what I wanted to say, or what I thought God wanted me to say. I spent a bunch of time just staring at a computer screen and looking at the Bible and just not being able to figure out what to put down. So this is the first time in my entire life that I've ever stood up here without knowing exactly what I was going to say. I got to last night and I realized that I believe that God was doing that on purpose because that's what Gideon's thing was all about. It's not about the preparation you're able to make. It's not about the planning that you can do ahead of time. It's about whatever God is going to do in that moment, in that time, with what you bring. And what you bring is just you. Earlier this week, I got to the end of what I thought I was going to talk about. And I thought to myself, so the fear that I have inside sometimes when I'm doing this, I thought about saying, you don't have to be afraid. Because as God shows over and over and over again, He is with us all the way through. But now I feel like that's not the right thing to say. I think the right thing to say is, go ahead, be afraid. It's okay. You know, go ahead, be you right now. It's okay. You know, bring whatever it is that you have as not good enough or as good as it can be. And you just bring that, and you give it to God, and you say, okay, God, I don't know what you're going to do, but I've shown up now, and that's all I can do. You have to take it from here. If Gideon had decided at some point in time that he needed more than what he was, if he had gotten convinced that God wasn't giving him enough, that whole story would have ended differently for a lot of people, all Israelites. I don't know what God calls each and every one of you to do. I don't know what that looks like in your life. I know what it looks like in my life. I know when I've felt called by Him, and I know the times that I've ignored Him because of fear or whatever, because of belief that all of this was not enough, not good enough, not smart enough, not worthy of that kind of trust. I would just encourage you today, if God calls you, if you feel like in any way that God is calling you to do something, whatever it is, small, big, that you just believe this one thing, that God knows who you are, in here and in here. He knows all there is to know about you. He knows where you're weak, where you need His strength, and He knows what it's going to take for you to do the things that He's asking you to do. And He's just going to make up the difference. He's going to take what you bring, and He's going to mold it into something that is wonderful and beautiful and is exactly what the world needs.
for the truth that you understand us, everything about us, so much so that you know exactly what we need every time we need it, even before we do, Lord. And I thank you for the fact that you're faithful to help us to accomplish all the things that you ask of us, and you're never going to leave us. Even when it seems like you are, even when it seems like we're on our own, you're always there. I thank you for that in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Dale. A line in a book that I was reading just in the last couple weeks has been going through my head. It said, "The world is a stark place, and we live in shelters built of luck and closed eyes." And that, it just kept coming to me, like, Is that kind of true? It kind of is. Like I know we're not always, we feel like our luck is run out sometimes. I know that. Very hard things happen, but I mean, we're sitting here in air conditioning and comfort, right? We live pretty blessed lives. And do I keep my eyes closed to the need around me, maybe, to problems around me, maybe, and maybe it's because I'm afraid of what I might have to do if I open my eyes. So Dale, I appreciate what you said today. Just by acknowledging that need maybe and doing something, God will do the rest. And I think God calls us, He's called us as individuals, He's called us as a church. Sun Valley for sure has, so often we've seen that there's a purpose and a reason for being here. And I know that lots of you have your eyes wide open because I see and I hear from you the things that you see and the ways that you help. And I think if we show up, like Dale said, and if we open our eyes, and if we give of our time, of our financial resources if we have them, if we do that, the opportunities to help are unlimited, and God is so unlimited, and He will take whatever it is, and however small it is, and do something big with it. And I'm just going to invite you to do that today. Whatever you can give, if Jason and looks like maybe Ernie back there, if you would come up, and I'm just going to ask that God opens our eyes and then tells us what to do. Father, we've been reminded of your power and how you actually like to show off a little bit and just make it very clear that you can do anything and that you will take people who don't have all the skills or the wealth or whatever it might be, the strength to do what you need done, but that you will do it anyway. Help us to be those people and to be that church that will make a difference by opening our eyes and by giving what we can. In your name, amen. I said I wanted to take a few minutes to tell you about things that are happening, and one of them that Abraham really wants us reminded, our pastor Abraham, who's not here today, is about the groups that happen over the summer where we stay connected, because summer, like I said, is a time when we see some people here that we only see in the summer, and it's great to see them, but we also miss out on seeing each other quite a bit, and so summer sun groups are a way to do that. If you do something, maybe regularly, it could be weekly, maybe not even that often, outdoors, indoors, on bicycles, on motorcycles, on the water, whatever it is, if you do that and you would be willing to have some other people join you that might be interested in that, please contact Pastor Abraham. He'll set it up, put all the information out there on our website or on Facebook so that other people can join you and stay connected. This coming week, I know last week there was a vacation Bible school program at Orchard City Church. This coming week, starting on Monday, is going to be at the West Side Adventist Church on Glen Rosa Road, 9:30 till noon, Monday to Friday. You can talk to Brandy. I know she's been involved. I've been into their VBSs before, and they're a great place. I hear there's a big crowd of kids already registered, but if you know kids who would enjoy that, talk to Brandy, and there'll be a place there for them. And speaking of Brandy, the Sun Valley Church Campout, jumping ahead a little bit, in September at Beaver Lake. Make sure that you sign up, that you register, come out and join us either camping or come for the day, but make sure that you come. It's always a great place to connect with each other. Oh, sorry, Ernie.
Someone from Kelowna Church just dropped off more. They're having a food fair, and here's a brochure that they wanted us to give to everybody. So this is their food fair tomorrow, and the proceeds go to their mission trip.
Okay.
So we'll just give them.
All right, so Ernie's just talking about an event happening at the Kelowna Church, and there will be more information on this flyer. So the Summer Sun groups, the VBS, please remember too that our church will be closed the 2 weekends of camp meeting when everybody's down in Hope. That is August 5th and July 29th-ish, whatever those 2 weekends are. I forgot to look at the dates. We meet on Saturdays, so whatever that is. Don't count, we won't be over. And next Sabbath in the afternoon, everybody's invited down to Skaha Beach in Penticton. Now it says on the announcements that it's for a corn roast. I'm pretty sure there's not going to be a fire happening, so. But there will be food, so bring snacks, bring some chairs, come and meet down there. It's at 5:30 at Skaha Lake. And again, this is a lot of stuff and a lot of information, and coming from someone who really doesn't know. So go ahead and check out our website, www.sunvalley.org, or our Facebook page, and all that stuff is always there, and you can be updated and find out what's going on. So thank you again for joining us today, and have a great, safe time outside on this sunny day.